and their other office is in North Dakota. And then you have the programmers who are converting everything that's in our site into the new section, so I don't have to do it. And then I'll be able to make it up and running. But believe me, there'll be a nice announcement from me to let everybody know to go and use it. And then to the commission and to the mayor, if you see things, maybe from using another site, please recommend it to me. I can add those things. If you look at other cities in Miami-Dade County, they use the same Gov office, so we can add those things. And I'm also currently right now working with Caesar to getting a link to our commission meetings. A lot of our residents don't have Comcast, so they can't watch it on their TV. But we're looking at hopefully putting a link so you can watch these meetings right there at your leisure.
Fantastic.
Great.
Right.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Maria, do we have access to that template to be able to look at it in more
I can
detail?
send it to you.
Okay.
I can send you. Remember, it won't be interactive, but I'll also give you Flex for it so you can kind of see how they do it, and I'd be happy to send it to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, moving on to additions, deletions, or withdrawals. Anything from the commission or staff?
Yeah, I have a couple things. 12C is called artwork donation, and it was intended to talk about one possible donation, but there are actually two possible donations, so I'd like us to talk about both of them. It shouldn't take very long.
So you want to, this is the piece that we were originally going to discuss,
Yeah,
and you wanted to add another piece.
right.
Okay.
It's not here, but it's one that we can look at on the screen, so we can all see what it looks like.
Okay, is there any, does anyone else on the commission have an issue with that? Or? No?
And the other thing is, I would like to consider a 12E, which would be a preliminary discussion of the format of our minutes. And again, it shouldn't take very long.
Okay, staff?
Mayor, staff would like to withdraw 7F and postpone it until next month.
Okay, is the applicant here, present?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and they were they are here?
Yes.
Okay, and they were notified?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we're pulling 7F, we're adding 12E, which is the format of the minutes, and then we're amending 12C with an additional piece of artwork.
I would
I have-
like to, sorry.
No, I was just saying, I have a little bit of a concern adding, I have no problem with 12E, but I have a little bit of a concern with adding another piece to 12C since the backup and the agenda materials only reference one piece, and people that were going to come to the meeting only had, only saw that one piece.
Would you rather save it
But
for another time?
I'm happy to have it as a discussion. I think it's fine. We're only discussing it, so.
Well, let's do it that way then. Let's just make it preliminary, and if you feel like we should really have more of a discussion with notice, we'll save it for next time.
Okay. Commissioner Ross?
I'd like to add just a brief discussion, and it's because of the timing of it, but the Miami-Dade County League of Cities installation is February 8th, and we should just discuss amongst ourselves whether we intend to go or not. So
Okay,
if we can
perfect.
make that 12F.
12F? Okay, all right, does staff have any issues with those?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to public comments, good and welfare. If anyone has any comments, they can come up to the podium, and I believe we have a new timer, which is 2 or 3 minutes?
Still 3. It's been 3.
3 minutes, okay. Of course, we'll be flexible.
Which I still don't know how to work yet, so hold on 1 second.
Nobody?
Oh, there's nothing?
No public comments? Chuck?
Chuck Ross, 11166 Griffin Boulevard. The resolution on the art piece, if there's going to be some discussion, could I come up and then and talk about it a little bit?
Sure.
At that time, that's what I
Sure.
figured. Thank you.
Anybody else? Last call. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Do I have actually, yeah, the minutes are included in the consent. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent, or would anyone like to pull any items from the consent?
Move to accept it.
Yeah, I want to pull one because I talked to our manager on one item on there, and I just want to make sure we're going to be doing
Which
that.
item was that?
I have to take a look. That's one kind of, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't on the consent agenda. It's okay.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion. Is that a motion by Commissioner Jonas?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have no public hearings, no ordinances, no resolutions. So we're going to move on to new business. Item 12A is a discussion, request for proposal for the solid waste services for the Village of Biscayne Park. So I'd like to have staff do an introduction of the item, and then the commission can discuss it.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is a request to only authorize staff to release a request for proposals for sanitation services. I will have Assistant to the City Manager, Sosa Cruz, give a brief overview of the request for proposals. We are available to answer questions and receive feedback. Just 2 points of information. Today, I met with the sanitation staff of the village and informed them of our discussion tonight so that they were well informed and had accurate information. Of course, I will not sugarcoat it. It was an uncomfortable discussion. I think it was uncomfortable to receive the information, but it was an open and honest discussion where I'm proud to say that the staff asked poignant questions. They also thanked me for my honesty, and we started that lines of communication, and I assured them at any point during this process my door was open for them to come and speak to me directly about any concerns. The only other point of information I have, on the dais we gave you a sheet. It says at the top, Muni Code and Cone of Silence. This is the Miami-Dade County Cone of Silence. In a really brief summary, the Cone of Silence basically is an area of vacuum where you, as well as myself and some of our staff, will go into once the RFP is released, if we are authorized to release it, and you would be unable to discuss this item with any potential vendor. It protects you, it protects the village, and it protects the process. We will educate the commission more on the Cone of Silence as we go forward, but I wanted you to be prepared of this, and we will not issue, at the same time we issue the RFP, we will issue a notice, an official notice to the commission letting you know that the Cone of Silence has started. So it's a little homework I placed in front of you, so you have a chance to review it before the cone goes into effect. So if you'll allow me, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sosa Cruz.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor, Commissioners, residents. And I'm going to start off by talking about the current state of the sanitation division. Currently the sanitation division has 3 garbage and trash trucks and 1 flatbed truck. Our newest truck is a 2007 truck. Our oldest truck is a 2001 truck. The newest one being 7 years old, the oldest one being 13 years old. A normal life expectancy of a sanitation truck is approximately 7 years. As you can see, most of our trucks are past the 7-year mark. We also have a flatbed truck that we use for emergencies, that we use when our sanitation trucks are full. For instance, out of our 3 trucks, all 3 of them are in different sizes. We have a 13 cubic yard, an 18 cubic yard, and a 20 cubic yards. Our 13 cubic yard truck gets filled up very fast, therefore we have to use the flatbed truck. Now, our flatbed truck is 12 years old. The sanitation division right now, as it currently stands, is very lean, meaning that we don't have any kind of luxuries, any additional employees. If one of our drivers gets sick or calls out, we have to pull staff from different departments, such as the Parks and Recreation Department. Currently, for the last month or so, we've been pulling the park superintendent, Derek Murray, because he does have a CDL license. We've advertised for a CDL for a laborer/driver position. It's very hard to get applicants to apply at the current rate that we're offering, or just due to the conditions that we have, we're not getting too many applicants. This is one of the reasons that we're exploring different options with the RFP. This RFP allows the village to seek input on the content of the actual RFP. This content includes contractor's price proposal. This includes the collection of services. How much would it cost the village if we were to look at private companies for scheduled collection services and for bulk trash pickups, including special requested pickups. Included in the RFP is also a section under customer service and operation plans. This includes a contractor's comprehensive approach to phasing in the new service of sanitation pickup, contractor's quality control plan, contractor's customer service and complaint plan. We've included also community involvement efforts. We've included the contractor's operations plans and what equipment, size trucks they'll be using. Other content in the RFP is our contractor's experience and references. In order for a contractor to operate in the village, the contractor must have at least 5 years of satisfactory experience in South Florida, and 3 years with at least 3 accounts of municipal cities similar to Biscayne Park. We've also included in the RFP the contractor's financial stability and resources. The contractor has to show financial stability and demonstrate sufficient equipment, capital, labor, and other resources that's required to operate successfully in the village. Additionally, in the RFP, we've included a scope of services that described 3 options that the contractor can pick from in providing services in the village. The first option is matching our current service that we provide, which is currently we provide twice a week pickup of garbage and once a week pickup of trash and once a week pickup of recyclable materials. That's the first option. That's what we're currently providing our residents. There's a second option, which is an automated service that's using the one-arm apparatus or equivalent, making it more automated. And the third option is where the contractor could provide their own method of collection services. In the RFP, we also stipulate that the village will accept all proposals, or would accept a proposal, or will reject any or all proposals that the village deems it's not in the interest of the village. And as the manager did describe, once the RFP is issued, we'll follow the cone of silence in which staff and any decision makers will not be able to communicate with any of the vendors. That's pretty much an overview of why we're putting out the RFP and what's included in the RFP. Mayor, I'm ready to answer any questions that the mayor or the commissioner might have.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with Commissioner Jonas, or do you have any
I don't have
comments?
any questions. Let's see if we want to keep Candido there.
I do.
Sure.
One of the things I'd like to see in this, because there's an explanation of how we are currently picking up our garbage and trash and recycles. In picking up our trash, we pick it up by hand, and I think we ought to have that in there so the companies know that we don't have holes in front of our houses.
I'll make sure to include that in the option 1, which is our current services provided to our residents.
Right, right.
Yeah, option 2 is the automated truck. Option 1 is exactly what we have now, which is by hand.
Correct. I'll just expand a little bit more on the wording that our current operation is being picked up by hand, not automated.
Okay.
Correct.
Anything Anything else, Commissioner Henry?
No, that was all.
Commissioner Ross?
Just some general comments is, if we're looking to make a change, then I hope that we can work in maybe a greener way, a more efficient way to do the operation, possibly lessening our footprint with emissions and things that are put out just in the actual working of the task. And something I mentioned to the manager when we met was that we are now having, in the last couple of years, we were offering a quarterly pickup, seasonal, and if that would be something that we could work in, doesn't necessarily have to be in the RFP, but maybe something negotiated down the line if and when we get to that point. That's it.
That's it?
That's
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it's an excellent idea it's just purely a fact-finding mission. There's absolutely no obligation to accept any of the bids once we go through that process. So I think it's just to take a look. So, you know, all our cards are on the table so we can determine whether it will be a significant savings or not. What is the cost associated with the RFP? Is it significant or?
There's no cost associated with this. That we would probably do an advertisement in the newspaper, which would be minimal, but the rest is in-house staff cost,
Okay,
or in-kind staff costs that are already being paid for.
okay. Any other comments by the commission?
Yeah, it's a little preliminary, but just to say, I think really what we're looking at here is conflicting interests. One interest everybody has is to try to save money for the village and for themselves, and the other interest is that many of us like a certain kind and level of service, and we have to balance the two. What I see us potentially doing with this is no more than just getting information so we can make an intelligent decision. We may decide that outsourcing saves us a little money, but we'd rather have the personalized service, or it saves us a lot of money and it's not possible not to take advantage of that, or it's equal, or it costs us more money, but we don't know until we've asked the questions, and I think it's
Right.
reasonable and fair for us to do that.
Right, I think that the real discussion is going to be once we have that information, and we'll discuss it in detail, as you said.
Sure.
Okay, so this is not, we don't need a resolution for this, we just need a consensus to direct staff to move
Do you want a
forward.
motion? I make a motion that we follow the staff's recommendation and authorize the RFP to allow proper analysis.
Is there a
Second.
second?
I'll second it, but I'd like to add with the change that I requested in there.
Regarding the hand
Yes.
pickup, okay?
You're right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Candido.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 12D. Discussion regarding the next steps in the annexation process. We'll have staff give an introduction.
The staff report that was provided to the commission summarizes the village's annexation efforts thus far. With this item, staff is seeking authorization to proceed with the completion of the final annexation report. If staff is authorized to proceed, upon completion of the report, we will also schedule the required public hearing. Staff also recommends the designation of a member of the commission, the village commission, to represent the village to the county. These recommendations are found on page 5 of 6 of the staff report. Also of note, today I received communication from Commissioner Sally Hayman, who has been to our commission meetings before, supporting our efforts. She informed me at this point in time, there is a poll going amongst the county commissioners for a workshop to be held on February 27th. At that meeting, 9 items related to incorporation and annexation will be considered. This includes resolutions and ordinances, all related to the processes and procedures of annexation. She stressed that it's important for us, if we are to proceed so that we are somewhat vested in the process before all of these changes take place. I received this memo from Commissioner Hayman late this afternoon. I did not want to blindly send it to the commission and confuse the item tonight. I will send it to you first thing this morning, or tomorrow morning. It requires no action from the commission, but it gives you a sense of it. I also have a copy here if you would like to see it.
I'm
It's
sorry,
just
what was the-
titles
what
of
was the date
resolutions.
again? February?
February 27th at 9:30 a.m. Such meeting is called to consider, I'm reading from the memo, matters relating to incorporation and annexation issues. At this meeting, the board may take action to approve ordinances, resolutions, motions, reports, or other documents and discussions related thereto that may, under the board's rules of procedures for other applicable law, be placed on the agenda of this special meeting. As has been my observation, it's very slow moving at the county when it comes to these items. There are some items just by their titles alone that seem to conflict with other items that are on the list. So I'm not saying not to put a lot of weight into action being taken, but they definitely are scheduling a special meeting just to talk about incorporation and annexation. So I do believe it's important to let our intentions be known. We have placed on the dais a revised map. We inadvertently used the wrong map in our backup. This removes the area south of 119th Avenue, which was included in the, or 119th Street, which was included in the early discussions of annexation. And staff is available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are we going to have a presentation by the planner, or are we?
No, we are all just available for questions.
Okay.
So we're essentially going back to the original idea.
What we placed in front of you is that original, that second original area. That does not include the multifamily south of 119th Street. Just for discussion purposes, we will defer to the direction that's given by the commission at this time.
What
So-
multifamily?
So this map, the new map that you placed on the dais does not include any residential?
It does not include the single-family residential. I
Oh, but it does include the multi?
It does include the multifamily.
Okay. The two gated communities, the
Correct.
relatively new, okay.
Correct. If you would, we have the map up on the screen, and I'll go to the screen to give you how, for discussion purposes, how I break this out in my mind. That might help in the discussion.
Great.
Yeah, you want to, yeah, that's perfect. So what you have basically is, in my mind, three sections, three different uses. You have your industrial area. You have three sections. Your industrial area here to the west. In the middle is your multifamily, and then you have your commercial right along Biscayne Boulevard. So in your discussions, it might be helpful to discuss it either as in total or in those three sections.
Comments by the commission?
You ready for a motion or not yet?
No, I think I'd rather discuss this.
No comment yet.
I just want to find out, because the previous commission rejected this. This is a different commission. Because you can't really bring something back up unless the prevailing side wanted to bring it up. The prevailing side wasn't reelected, so we can bring this back up this way, or how does this work?
We did not bring back a resolution to you. We are only seeking
Right.
a motion and direction from the commission.
I just want to, make sure what we're doing doesn't conflict what was done before, and it doesn't cause a problem, whatever we're going to be doing.
Right now, you don't have the formal action of that resolution, so you'll be
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I've spoken at length about this proposal and about the financial needs of the village. I don't know if I want to rehash all of that. I think everyone here has been, part of that discussion or aware of that discussion. Just suffice it to say that it is a proposal that has been in the works and has been among our city's planning documents for many years now. And it seems like the right time to take a step closer into the discussion so that we have all of the information in order to make an informed decision.
Okay. I'd like to ask a few questions. I guess first to the finance director, if you can step up to the podium. So Erwin, you did a budget projection and looked at what the situation would be in 3, 4, 5 years, correct? And in your professional opinion, by 2017, there'll be a substantial, based on a number of assumptions, but by the time we reach 2017, the revenues, there'll be a shortfall, a substantial shortfall.
We'll be depleting our fund balance at that point, yes.
Okay. And do you feel that the analysis you did is a complete analysis, or?
To the best of my ability, on the assumptions that I made at that point in time. I mean, what I did is I looked at the past history for revenues and expenditures to try to determine trends. We took into account things like the new Obamacare coming in and what impact that's going to have on our health insurance costs. We put in our assumptions for normal pay increases that we have every year, and other costs that increase like gasoline and other specific costs we know go up every year. If we keep if sanitation stays, then we estimated in what the increased repair costs would be on the trucks and the impact it would have on the agency. So we try to factor as many things as possible. Obviously, things change over time, but at that point in time, that's what our guesstimate is at this point.
Okay, so by 2017, you estimate that there would be a deficit of approximately $80,000,
Correct.
and that it would increase as the years went on.
Right. You'll see it if you go to the next year. You even see there's a jump the next year and the next year.
Okay. The second question, thank you. The second question I had is for the planner. Is there a way, and I understand that the report you'll be preparing is a report to be submitted to the county. If, when it comes back to us, we'll have to approve that and discuss it. But to my knowledge, you haven't analyzed just the costs and the cost to maintain just the industrial area, as well as the benefits, the added benefits of just doing the industrial area.
Good evening. That's correct, but that's easily pulled out to do that individually.
Can you do that just for discussion purposes so that when it comes back, well, can you easily do that? In other words, have two reports when you come back?
I could do whatever you ask me to do. I could do, basically it's only 5 parcels in the industrial area, I believe, so it's just a minimal, removing that from the total. So it's really not, I wouldn't consider it a second report, it's just a piece of one report.
Okay.
So I could give you, the numbers, the revenues and the expenditures based on that area.
Okay, I mean, if the commission agrees, what I would like to see is, just so we can look at a few different scenarios, have the planning director just look at the industrial piece so we know what the costs would be to maintain that area, as well as the revenues gained, and then
Right.
compare that to the much greater parcel, because I think, the residents that I've spoken with have some concern with bringing in residential properties, and I think doing just the industrial portion would be easier to swallow, particularly if it gives us a significant amount of revenue. And I think that what we're going to find is the cost associated with servicing just that industrial area is going to be much less than the residential portion.
Correct. I mean, because it's so small, it's only 12.25 acres. I mean, you would not need a full-time police officer or code enforcement or, additional staff, most likely. But I will, have that discussion with the village manager, and then we'll come up with your actual costs.
Yeah, I think it's important to have both of those parcels so we know, we know what the cost and revenue would be from everything. And then the same thing is what's the cost and revenue from that smaller piece.
It's easy. And remember, things have been going up, so I think, we've been doing this since August of 2012 or shortly thereafter. It's been quite a while. So properties have increased in value. I know the office buildings, one of them, definitely went up. So, that's a positive.
Is there a consensus on going in that direction?
You're going in what direction?
Having the planner analyze separately the industrial parcels so that we know if we went forward with just the industrial, we'll know. Because we're going to go to the commission with an application, and it's going to be, we're going to describe the property that we feel is going to benefit the village the most without costing us much. So in order to do that, in order to submit what we want to submit to the county, we need to consider all options. And I feel like if we only look at just this larger piece, we'll never know. What if the industrial piece gives us a significant amount of revenue and costs us little to nothing to maintain? Wouldn't you prefer to go that route rather than annexing residential, which may cost us much more to maintain?
So it sounds like the question is not what it would cost to maintain the industrial part, but what it would cost to maintain the residential part.
Well,
That's where people are expressing concern, right?
Well, you need a comparison. You need to put all the cards on the table so you can make an educated decision as to which parcel would be the best for the village. And the planner is telling us that it's not going to cost that much more to separate out the industrial parcel.
I'll tell you what my concern is. We are in a certain kind of trouble, and Irwin will tell us where that trouble is going in X number of years. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for us to try to figure out how small a piece we could take, assuming that the county would even permit that, and how little we would have to pay to maintain it if we're trying to solve a relatively big problem. I wouldn't want to find out that we just managed to get this little piece, but it didn't really work.
But until
I'd
you do
rather
the
take a little
analysis,
too
we won't
much.
know that.
Well, that's true, and I wouldn't mind looking at that as we go along, but I think what we're going to be asked to do is to make an application. So I would rather make the full application with the understanding that we scale that back if we don't like the way things look. But I'm just afraid not to commit to the whole thing.
No, understood, but the direction would be to have the planner prepare the full study for submission, subject to it coming back in our approval, for the entire piece, but also doing an analysis of just the industrial so that when it does come back, we can make an educated decision as to which piece to submit to the county.
If I could jump in and just give you because I've lived with this proposal for almost 2 years now, so I have some working knowledge about what the numbers are. And the light industrial area has an assessed value of about $9.7 million. The entire area that we're talking about here, which is the only residential are 2 gated communities, and the retail shops along Biscayne Boulevard, that entire area is almost $55 million. So, you know, if we're talking about scaling it back to a 20% piece rather than the 100% of the area proposed, I think that we're being short-sighted. Now, I also understand that you want to see the comparison, but I just wouldn't like to step forward with the idea that we're going to do just the least amount necessary or the least amount that we consider necessary today. I think that we need to plan for the long term, and it's a fairly big step for our village to take, but I think that we need to project out what the benefits are going to be and do a workable plan today, something that we can live with 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. And then 10 years down the road, if things change, we can decide to go in a different direction. But I would like to see us go for the larger capacity. And if it's not, it shouldn't be too much work to give you the numbers for that one section, but I don't want us to fall short of the mark.
And we'll have that discussion at the next meeting, or when the report is prepared, we'll have that discussion to move forward with one or the other. But I think we need to do the homework and have both sides presented. And also don't lose sight of the fact that if we just do the industrial, it's a clean slate. Once we control that property, we could rezone that property. It doesn't always have to be industrial, which would, if we rezone that property to residential, commercial, that's going to skyrocket the value. So the 9.7 million is not always going to be 9.7 million.
That's true. Something else we should consider is that in the county's eyes, how is the county going to perceive this? And they already made it clear that they don't look favorably on the cherry picking of commercial and of commercial and industrial properties. They want the municipalities to take responsibility for residential areas as well. So I think that adding that residential area, which is the two gated communities, which should not require very much by way of resources for maintaining, I think that that will give us better standing, and the county would look at our application in a more favorable light.
Any other comments?
I think we ought to be able to have both scenarios. And the discussion that we're having now, we're going to have that same discussion again once we have both scenarios. Because we don't know what's going to work the best for us because we don't have the numbers in front of us. And, you know, I agree we don't want to just have just enough to get us by today. I mean, we have to look for the future, but we don't know, we don't have the information yet to make that decision.
So is there a consensus to proceed with the two options, at least so far as preparing the report?
I thought
I wouldn't deprive you of the information, but I'd rather we didn't.
I thought the request was to do the full report, but then also have like a little sub breakout of the information you're requiring.
But if at that meeting we want to proceed with just the smaller area, we need to be ready. He needs to be able to substitute in the data for just the industrial if that's how we want to proceed.
I have a suggestion. Maybe either at the next meeting or through a manager's memo to you, I could just do both instead of me presenting again and doing two reports or whatever. I really think it's, I just have to go back and look at the numbers to see if values have increased, and I know they have. So I could just do a memo to the manager and meet with the manager just to get, make sure we're on the same page with any additional staffing needs or whatever, break it out, and then you have that. It's not really the report because I'd rather go forward with, the transmittal approval to transmit the documents. So I think I could do a memo that shows both, then you all decide, and then I can get your direction after that.
Okay, but I know there's some timing sensitivity to this because North Miami submitted their application, so that's going to put us at 2 meetings to ultimately.
I've been doing this a long time, and there are a lot of applications sitting there, so it's up to the commission, the county commission, to move everything along. So they're just I can't tell you how many. I have, I'm doing another report, and there must be 20 annexation requests sitting at the county.
When do you contemplate having the final report back to us, ready for submittal or ready for our final approval?
Within a month or so, I would say. I mean, the report won't take long because the analysis, we've done a lot of it. It just has to be put in the format, and I have to update it, a number of numbers.
So for the February meeting?
When is that?
February 4th.
That's a month.
Which we would need it.
I may have to go back to the county. There's certain things we don't have the correct numbers of electors, I believe, because last year in August or July, whenever we did the last count, it was 223 or something. When did we count? Because
it's possible that that number came from the very first review, which came down to 118th Street, because the clerk.
I think I just did the two. No, it was just the two multifamily, and the Bay Winds, because it was. I actually spoke with someone, and they gave us the numbers. So
when we were going through our election process, I had the clerk check with the Department of Elections how many registered voters are in those two communities, and they came back with 0.
in Baywinds. And I was given
I'll ask her to
223.
verify that.
Well, I mean, this is something then I have to resubmit a letter to the county to get the accurate figure, because I was told 223 electors.
Okay,
And
so,
that was in Baywinds.
so what I'm hearing is you may not be able to have the report ready for the February meeting.
Yeah, because you need a week or so prior to that. It's just a little close, because I really have to go back to the county and get some information, just so we're all on the same page, and, because I know the population in Baywinds alone was 559, I believe, and that's how we, and then I was told that there were 223 electors, so.
So why don't, for the next meeting, if the commission agrees, could you come back with us, as you said, with the summary of the two options?
The big area, then this.
And just the industrial? And then we can have a discussion at the next meeting as to which one to proceed with, if any,
Right.
for the following
And
meeting.
then I'd like direction to actually do the report and transfer.
My understanding from the manager is that it's sort of imperative that we get our foot in the door so that we can join in the discussion that the county is going to have in late February.
Well, my feeling is you join the discussion, period. You don't need to have, in my mind, anything submitted, because we don't know where they're going. I mean, that's my opinion, so I don't know. Like I said, I've been dealing with this issue for a long time. Besides the county commission meeting on the 27th, there's also this RFP out there to have a university or a consultant study annexations in total again. So, I don't know what's happening. It's always great to have, paperwork submitted, but, knowing what the county commission has been doing, which is not much, I don't know what's gonna happen.
It's the village manager.
Thank you.
I feel strongly that by February 4th, we should be well on our way in this process so that we can submit to the clerk of the county board before the 27th. I think there's something to be said about being in the process, and that was the impression I had from our county commissioner today. There are a few ways we can do this. One is perhaps I would say a light meeting, perhaps before the 4th or right after the 4th, to finalize this issue. We could come back on the 4th with two resolutions, option A and option B, which is kind of how I've heard the discussion tonight, and we could appropriately find a way to advertise that, or we could have that meeting perhaps the week before the 4th and come back with the final resolution on the 4th. Just play around with those dates. I understand the consultant's concerns about needing to meet with the county, but I would like to see, as much as we can push you to get
I
that
could do
work
it.
done,
That's
so we can
not a
get
problem. I'm just
back.
worried about your meeting. So is the direction going to be for me to do a memorandum and meet with you, do a memorandum to show the revenues and expenditures for the big area and the little area? Then on the 4th, we could come back with the resolution, for approval for the transmittal of the document and the report.
I'm gonna allow the commission to give that direction. I'm just giving them some options right now of how I see it, but my professional opinion is we need to be at the county, no later than that February 11th, February 12th time period with transmitting our support. If the ultimate direction is to go forward, is transmitting our direction to go forward. So even if it takes the clerk at the county a couple months to get it on the county agenda, we are vested to some degree in the process. And I know that there's some past history with the vesting of applications at the county.
Mayor?
Sure.
I'd like to go ahead in what was mentioned. At February's meeting, we have the numbers. At that time, the commission can make a decision, besides picking, if they're going to pick whatever they're going to do, pick A, B, and C, C being nothing. And then if the commission feels that they need to look actually at your document before you submit it, then we could have a special meeting so we could do that.
I would prefer to do it at, I mean, I like to do it at the same time, just so, I mean, you can split it up, but I mean, I could work and get it done. You know, it's just, you have the two things to, so you don't have to have a special meeting, then we could just look at
That's fine.
the report and the resolution for transmittal.
But how will you have, by that meeting, you'll have a report for both scenarios?
Well, I don't know if I could call it a supplement. I mean, I could have an A or B, you know, and we could stick in whatever we need to stick in, whatever way we go.
Just so we're clear, you need to have your advertising done before the meeting, so if you want to follow the village manager's direction, you want to make sure that she has enough sufficient time to get that advertising out, so you can have that discussion with the public as to whether you want option A, option B, or as Commissioner Anderson said, option C. So it sounds like the report can be done and that the subset can be done, just clearing your schedules to make sure that you have the time frame for, and direction to the manager for the advertising with the alternatives.
That's if we were going to go ahead and be having a special meeting or the regular meeting.
Whichever one you want to do, she needs enough time, though, to be able to advertise
Right.
to get the notice out, and that's really the issue.
And just to clarify that, the advertising will specify the area that we would be proceeding with. We can advertise two titles, essentially. One is accepted and one is rejected. There's no harm, no foul in doing that.
Fine.
With direction from, as far as the timing for the clerk and I to advertise the meeting, with the direction tonight, we can write the title tomorrow. There doesn't need to be a special meeting to give us the ability to advertise. After tonight, we'll kind of know exactly the title that we would be advertising in the paper.
So if we could maybe break this down, and if you're ready to entertain a motion, I'll make one on the first piece, which would be to grant staff approval to proceed with completing the report as Proposal A, Proposal B.
I'll second that.
Want to vote on each one of these items, or is there a reason to separate them out?
Just making it simple.
Okay, all right, so there's a motion, a second, all in favor?
What's the motion?
To authorize staff to proceed with completing the annexation report with the two options.
Okay, motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's going to come back to us on the 4th? You'll have time to prepare the report.
I will get it done.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
then the next motion is, with regard to scheduling the meeting, it's going to be on the 4th. I don't think you need anything, just direction to do that, okay?
We've got it. I don't think we need the motion. I mean, that's our intent, is to come back on the 4th.
And then the third element that you have as a recommendation to designate a member of the commission to represent the village. I don't know that we actually need to take action on that today.
Let's wait till the next,
It would be at the next,
yeah, I
the
agree.
next meeting.
And just to clarify that point, what that would entail is one or multiple elected officials and the manager. We have the acceptance of the report by the county commission, then it goes to staff, then the next major step is the planning advisory board, then it goes back to the county commission, their land use and development committee. So it's just attending those meetings and introducing the item or discussing it, so.
How long does that whole process take, Alex?
Okay. In a good year, I mean, if everything was in a perfect world, we estimated probably about a year. So, because, you know, that's 9 months to a year if all the steps were followed and everything was on time. But
And in reality?
in reality, the first one I ever did was in 2004, and it's still not approved. So, it's the county commission. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to 12C, artwork donation. staff?
Thank you. Summary, staff was approached by resident Chuck Ross regarding the donation of this beautiful sculpture that you see to my left, and I just gave my professional opinion on that. The village gift policy states that artwork and items valued over $5,000 are to be accepted by the village commission, and that's what we're in front of you tonight with. Staff recommends acceptance with a couple conditions, that the donor shall provide the base so that it is done in a way that is acceptable to the artist. And also, staff recommends the commission seek input from one or more advisory boards regarding the final location of the item. As Mr. Ross stated before, he's available for discussion or questions. And we also have, if the clerk can bring it up for us, we also have the image of the other item that Commissioner Jonas referred to, and we can project that on the screen for you.
Okay, let's deal with this one first, and then
Sure.
we'll decide whether to discuss the other item. Chuck?
Oh, yeah,
Chuck,
first of all-
just before you
Yeah,
proceed,
go ahead,
just one
go
other
ahead.
question. What do you mean base, Heidi? When you say that the donors would provide the base?
The anchoring mechanism,
A slab,
a slab, a base,
okay,
the securing of
right.
the object.
Let me say that on his way out, Jared said he would do that, so voluntarily, I didn't ask him. Hopefully, hopefully he won't renege, but I don't think he will. Let me, first of all, or maybe Candido, if you don't mind, would you just demonstrate that it spins? Maybe you can get a good camera angle on it. And if we don't want it to spin, we can design it so you can have a set screw so it doesn't spin. But the sculptor's name is Steve Zalewski. He's 61. He's from Long Island, New York. Fred negotiated the deal, and we've essentially bought the sculpture together and want to loan it to the village. So the deal is that the loan is for, and I put in my memo up to 6 months, but I want to change that to a year. And now that Jared has volunteered or contributed, is going to contribute the slab, and what we're talking about is this costs $6,000. So we're going to make all efforts to raise $6,000 as soon as we can, and then turn it over to the village. So we're asking that as I stated in my memo, the intention is to obtain reimbursement for the cost, turn the loan into a donation. Based on the recommendation of the manager in the agenda package and everyone I've spoken to, I hope that you accept the offer as outlined in the memo, and I further have decided that I will make a matching donation. In other words, I'm going to leave some of my money on the table for what's been invested already to give an incentive. So I'll put in so many dollars per whatever, up to a maximum. I haven't decided how much yet, but I'm definitely going to contribute to this, of course. And I just out of curiosity, so what does everybody think of it? We got a show of you like it? Yeah? Okay. Anybody that doesn't like it? Okay. I haven't talked to anybody yet that doesn't like it. Everybody on the council like it? Okay.
Without the set screw.
Well, that'll be up to the manager, because the manager's going to, as her agenda item states, the placement. In other words, we're not putting any restrictions on this, other than we raise the money within a year, and we'll make a commitment to leave it here at least a year. As my memo states, though, it's up to the manager's discretion where she wants to put it. I happen to think it would look great here. I want to name it Jameis Winston, but that's up to you guys. We'll call him Famous Jameis. I have a hat I could put on it now. And do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chuck.
Oh, let me make one comment. The attachment that was in this is for a gift, and right now what we're offering is a loan. So probably the attorney's going to have to modify that. But that's the intention, and I'm sure we'll raise the money without a problem. I think we've already got several offers. Thank you.
Chuck, you asked if there's any questions?
Yes.
My concern, I think it's a nice statute, number one. But my concern is with the children. If it was here at the park with the small kids and stuff, with our confined area, I'm concerned of what would happen to that or happen to a child.
That was in my memo, and I
I
mentioned
read
it to the manager, and I think the way she can answer how she's going to handle it, but I'm sure we could figure out a way to protect it.
And of course,
Or we could put it with the other sculpture and Griffin, whatever they decide. Whatever, I mean, you know, it's,
and maybe that would start an art park over there.
as I said, I'm happy, you know, it seems to fit with the rec center because it's a ball player.
You're absolutely right.
Raise it up on a
Well,
pedestal.
I don't know how willing, I think Jared's the only one to do a slab. I don't know if he's going to do it. It has to be anchored, and the thing is also, by the way, you can remove the sculpture, so if we have a windstorm, it can be taken out and brought inside in case of high winds. So that's something that can be handled very easily and stored here. So,
Thank you, Chuck.
anything else? No? 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 Thank you. Anybody?
I just had a couple of comments. I think it looks great. I think it will be an excellent addition. And I also want to recognize Commissioner Jonas for his work in starting this whole public art campaign. I just have and I think we should accept the sculpture, but just a couple issues. One is, I don't know if it unnecessarily complicates things to do it as a loan. I think it should either be donated now or wait until the funds are raised and then donate it. I don't know if there's unnecessary issues associated with taking it into the village as a loan, and if it gets damaged. I don't know if those are issues that we necessarily need to deal with, so I think that's one issue. The second issue is, I think now that this is really starting to take off, I think we should definitely create a public art committee, and I think the commission was provided an email from one of our residents. And I think it's a good idea just to form a committee so that they can start putting together a plan as to where these art pieces are going to be located and the types of art pieces that we want to acquire. So those are the two comments, but with that said, I think this should be accepted even before that committee gets formed. But I do have an issue with donating it on a loan rather than taking it directly.
I think our memo from staff said that there would be, there was no problem with adding it to the village's
Insurance.
umbrella policy with no added expense to the
Right.
village. So just to clarify, even though it may not be titled in the village still, it's something that's on village property and it could be protected in that way.
Correct. When we posed the question to our insurance holder, we specified that it might only be here for 6 months, and they said it's covered under our policy. The way our policy, just for general knowledge, as we go forward with more and more of these pieces, the way our policy works is we are covered for 15,000. We are covered for items of value up to $15,000 each, with no additional premium costs to the village. So each item, as long as it's valued under $15,000, we do not have an additional cost. We do have a maximum, and let me look at it correctly, of $250,000 in any year for coverage of these items.
Damages.
So if we were to have damages, so we would just want to be cognizant of that as we go forward. God forbid that worst storm comes through, that we don't have more than $250,000 of value that we're looking to be insured at
I
a risk.
think that the issue of hosting a lent piece or a borrowed piece, a lot of cities are doing that now. I know Miami
Yes.
Shores has a couple of sculptures that were not given outright to the city, but they're hosting them, and one of them has been in the city for several years. Didn't seem to have a problem with them. And so I don't really have an issue with that. I think it's a great idea to display it and inspire people to donate money towards it, and hopefully it'll catch on fire and spread.
Okay,
Chuck.
no, I'm comfortable with that.
Chuck, why do you want to loan it? Why don't you just want to collect the money and then give it when you have enough money?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
Why do you want to loan it to the village? Why don't you just collect whatever money you can, and when you have enough, then just give it to the village.
We
Why
could
you
do
want to
that,
loan it first?
but I think we should go ahead and display it. I think it'd be a nice addition, and why should we just keep it locked up somewhere when people can look at it? I think it'll inspire people to donate money.
I mean, in light of the insurance explanation, I don't have a problem.
That was in my memo, actually. That was one of my questions.
Okay.
And I was told that there's no additional cost. So really, there's no cost to this other than the manager has offered to have landscaping, which I think is one of the things that was going to keep the children. I'll let you, thank you.
I don't have I most likely would go talk to our Parks and Parkways Committee, just on how, find creative, low-cost ways to protect it. You know, as your village manager, it's my concern to protect the asset, as well as protect those who are visiting or live in the village, especially those children that might be climbing on it if someone was to get hurt. So I'm thinking some kind of landscaping, maybe a little prickly to keep kids away, maybe some low picket fencing around that landscaping, some low-cost items just to protect it, because it is attractive. As I put on my other hat as a mother to an 8-year-old, you know, the mother's up here, that's a beautiful jungle gym right there, you know? And it spins.
Right. It
So
spins.
we will, you know, we would treat this a little differently than we would treat the other sculpture that we already have in Griffin Park.
And
It is
that-
an attractive piece.
Right, that's my concern of having it here, but we would then lose the impact of the base look around there.
Yeah.
Is there a way to put maybe like a decorative low type of fence to sort of cordon it off so that at least it has the appearance of not?
Correct, yeah, some kind of low picket or something like that. And that's just me kind of thinking off the top of my head. I most likely, like I said, would go to Parks and Parkways and ask for some support and ideas. Those are our subject matter experts in the village.
Okay. Any comments on creating the committee for future pieces?
I think we should treat this as, I mean,
This is
two
separate.
separate things, so
Okay.
can we
Sure. We can discuss
slide
that.
this off the table and then we'll go to
Well,
the other?
did we
I want-
vote to accept this?
I'd like
We
to
did
first
not.
thank Jared Susie for offering
Yeah.
to help us with the installation with the slab, and I'm sure you'll be in touch with him to try to
Oh, yeah.
make sure that happens. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we accept the piece with the conditions as proposed by staff.
Okay, let's just have one more member of the public that wants to speak before we proceed with that.
Hello, Susan Weiss, 116th Street. I've spoken about this before in the past, and I agree with the mayor that there needs to be some kind of a committee that's going to decide what art is selected. I happen to be an artist, and I think that it's great that an artist knows people who want to buy their stuff and display them in the public. You know, what about other people's art that people don't know about? And, you know, I get the feeling this is turning into a private art collection. Not private because we can all see it, but someone's definition or someone's decisions about art are being, you know, placed in Biscayne Park. It's a fun sculpture. I can see it, you know, in a kid's playground area, you know, fun to look at. But I just have a real problem with this whole selection process.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Commissioner Ross had a motion. Could you just repeat that?
Make a motion to accept the piece with the conditions as proposed by staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes?
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Commissioner Gillis. I know we were going to add item,
Well, 12D,
no, I'm sorry, 12D. Okay, that's on the, regarding the signing of public art.
There's 12C2, which is the
Oh.
other sculpture.
That's
And
right.
there's 12C3, which is the art committee.
Okay, so 12C2, which is the other sculpture, my preference is to put that off, number one, because it wasn't advertised as part of this, and number two, I think because if the consensus is to form this committee, I think that we should probably form that committee before accepting any other sculptures, but that's just my sense. Again, I think this is a wonderful campaign, and I have nothing, you know, I think it's going to be a wonderful addition, but I just think what I'm hearing from residents is that they want to have more input and have more people choose the art rather than just a few people. And I love that sculpture as well. I think it's excellent.
Right. If we could just have preliminarily have,
Just leave it up there.
if we could just have a preliminary briefing of what the piece is,
Sure,
maybe?
sure.
Sure. As you all know, our mural, or maybe you don't, but anyway, our mural, the one outside, was done by a woman named Cecilia Lueza. She does a number of murals and other paintings. She also does sculpture, outdoor sculpture, and this is one of them. I looked at her website and found a number of them that I personally liked, and I put them all in a blog post a couple of months ago, circulated it, and I think all of the people who responded liked the same one of the group that I circulated, and that was the one. So I thought that if that's what people like, and I liked it too, then maybe it's something that the village would like to acquire, the same way we've acquired other things, which is that anybody who's interested contributes to it, and it gets bought, and it gets donated to the village. So, and everything that she had, she offered at a discount. So the discounted price of this one is $7,500. I have forgotten for the moment what the height of it is, but it seems to me it's maybe about, do you have it there, Maria? It's either 8 feet or 11 feet. I'm not sure. It was in the blog post. It's aluminum, and the pieces are painted.
I think it's time, I think it's pretty, but I think this is one thing that should go in front of the art committee that we're going to go ahead and, as far as 12D, setting up some kind of an art committee. I think we need to get started on it before we go too far.
To set up such a committee, do we need to do a code amendment, or?
Well, there's two ways to do it. If it becomes an advisory board to the commission, it would be through ordinance. We could talk about doing a task force, a blue ribbon committee that's only created for 18 months. You might still need to do an ordinance, maybe a resolution for that, but that would not necessarily be a code change per se. It would just be it would be a reso, the creation of like a blue ribbon committee.
And maybe we can do that first, just to get the ball rolling, and then in the meantime, we could form the committee, go through the steps to form the committee, do the code amendment.
There's a third option that we could do is through the foundation, which is our arm for fundraising. Although I've always wanted to keep the foundation away from the political process, we could ask them, would they be willing to set up a committee, an advisory committee, for that purpose? And particularly because we're not using tax dollars, we're not using village money to make these purchases because we just can't afford to, we're going to have to look towards fundraising to acquire pieces. And until we have some kind of mechanism or actually have funds in hand, there won't be too much for a committee to be discussing.
And to have a committee that reports back to the foundation, then the foundation can report to us what the committee's findings are.
I suppose it could work that way.
Because since the foundation, like you pointed out,
Right.
is if we're looking for donations, it's going to go to the foundation, so have the foundation involved in it. But you can have other people on the committee as a separate committee to the foundation.
Right, it wouldn't just be the foundation trustees. The foundation itself can appoint a panel of advisory members.
I don't see a huge rush in doing this. I think if we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's just have a separate committee. Let's amend the code and create this committee. If it's something, it looks like that's something we're going to stick with and really develop, I think that we should do it that way. And I also have a little bit of a problem involving the foundation, because I think I think there are a number of projects that I think that we can use the foundation to raise money for that are probably more urgent than art. And again, I love the art concept and I think it's a great idea, but there are things that I think probably take priority over art that the foundation could really help with. And I think the art should just be private donations from the community.
Well, we ought to take a look at the purpose of the foundation and its, corporate documents and bylaws, because if we want to change it, I suppose we can, but it was specifically set up for cultural reasons and for education and for preserving history,
Right.
historic treasures, and things like that. I think this fits in. We could do it either way.
No, it does fit in, but, we have the log cabin, and I don't know, we have many issues to deal with, and the art is great, I just think it should be,
Yeah. Something else to consider is that from time to time, we have had difficulty placing people to fill boards. And, I mean, the foundation is a perfect example. Right now, I think we only have 1 or 2 members sitting there. So if we create too many appointee situations, then we might find ourselves without being able to reach their capacity.
but there's been a lot of interest in this committee, in this potential committee. I think, Commissioner Jonas, you received some input from some people that are interested, or, I know that I've received a few people that want to serve.
I got an email from one person who asked me if I thought we should have an art committee.
Okay.
That was it.
Oh, yeah, I've heard from, I think, two or maybe 3 people that would be interested in serving.
Let me broaden the perspective a little bit. A few years back, maybe it was about 4, something like that, or 3 or 4, there was a feeling to have an art committee, except the commission at that time did not want to appoint one. So it assigned the task of appointing one and the theory of appointing one to the foundation. The foundation didn't want to appoint one either, because the foundation felt that there was no relevant expertise that would be represented by an art committee that would be appointed. So it turned out nobody wanted to appoint one. The next time we attempted to offer a piece of art to the village, which was fairly recently, there was again talk about how we didn't have a proper process and an art committee, except nobody appointed one. So my concern is, does this just go around in a circle where we just talk about how we should have an art committee, except nobody wants to be on one, nobody wants to appoint one, we don't have one, and therefore we can't move forward. And I would hate to think that that's the resolution of this.
But I think there's sort of a momentum, thanks to you, for this project. And so I think times are different now. I think people are interested in this.
Maybe they are.
And so I think there'll be more involvement.
Then why don't we appoint an art committee?
I'm sorry?
Why don't we appoint an art committee? All we're talking about is a group of people who, for whatever would be our reasons in imagining it, would have a good eye for art. And they would look at something like this and they would say they'd like it for the village or they wouldn't, but it's not the village that's buying it, at least not at the moment.
But that's what I'm suggesting, is for us to appoint an art committee. Start a committee and appoint the members.
So why don't we do that now? Why don't we?
But we can't, there's no mechanism in the code to have the art committee, so we have to change that.
Can we
Is
make
it
a
the
motion
code,
to ask?
Heidi, or is it the charter? I don't think it's the code that talks about advisory boards.
It's the
I
code.
think it's the charter.
It's
It is the
the-
code?
It's code.
Right.
Okay.
So we can give staff direction to next month come back with
Right.
what we need to accomplish that
A
next step.
proposed ordinance to create that committee. Works? Okay, is there a motion? Or no, we're gonna give you direction, and there's a consensus to do that.
To come back to the commission with a draft ordinance creating a public art committee,
As a recommending body to the commission.
an advisory board.
Right.
Ms. Weiss, would you be on such a committee? Would you, maybe, yeah? Good.
Okay, so that's 12C2. So 12C3 was the.
Art committee, we just
Oh, I'm sorry,
disposed
that
of it.
was 12C2 and
Right.
3, okay. All right, so moving on to 12D. Assigning a public art location selection to a committee. I think that, can we include that with the new
I think so.
committee?
And also, too, I think it was a discussion with the Parks and Parkway, having them involved with it.
Well, I guess with this piece, we're gonna have to decide.
Yeah.
No.
We're gonna have to decide where to put this piece prior to the selection committee, so we should,
Yeah, if you could, considering we're starting to train down the track long-term, if perhaps for this specific item, if you could just give me some direction on who you would like me to talk to in our existing committee structure regarding the location, that would be helpful. Or if you would like to make a decision right now regarding the location of the piece. I would just like to consult either with the commission as a body or a board as a body and not make that decision by myself.
I think that, in my opinion, the Parks and Parkways would be most suitable to make a recommendation to us.
The last time we did this, last time we had something to place, we assigned the manager, who was then Ana Garcia, to figure it out. And what she did is seated a combined group of Parks and Parkways, Planning and Zoning, and I'm not sure that she didn't include ecology or something, and the public, and that whole group of people decided upon where the piece now is in Griffin Park.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Could we, I mean, it seems Park and Parkways does so much for the village that they should be involved, but maybe also planning and zoning, as Commissioner Jonas says. Could you just call a joint meeting of those and get their advice?
I can?
I don't think it has to come back to us for a final approval.
Why don't we do what the prior commission did and just ask Heidi to figure it out, and she can use whatever mechanism she wants?
Does that work?
It works.
Okay.
And I got some pretty good direction just now.
All right, so we're all in
Okay.
agreement?
Yeah.
All righty. 12E is the format of the minutes added by Commissioner Jonas.
Yeah. For a long time, we used what were called action minutes, and they are relatively spare. They include what the topics are, the fact that there was discussion, what motions were made, and what the vote was. A few years ago, we expanded minutes and the taking of minutes to be more comprehensive than action minutes, with the idea that that would increase the sense of precision and inclusiveness. And two things happened. One of them was that it took the clerk a tremendous amount of time to expand the minutes. And the other was that we didn't wind up with more precision. We wound up with less precision because there were more things to guess about in terms of what was important and how to capture quotes. So my sense is maybe we should just go back to action minutes, since for decades nobody complained about them. And it then saves the clerk a tremendous amount of time, and it produces something that works well for the neighborhood.
I think, Commissioner Jonas.
I agree with Commissioner Jonas, especially since our clerk was telling us that their plans are to go ahead and have these meetings on our website. So if anybody wants to hear word for word of whatever happened during the meeting, they'll have the whole meeting they can be watching from our website. So I think it gives even more information by doing that, and reduces the load for our clerk of having to go ahead and try to give almost verbatim minutes and go back to action minutes that we used to have, and it worked very well for decades.
Can we, and I agree that we should go back to the abbreviated minutes, but can we hold off on that until we have the website? How long is it going to take to get the website up?
The video part of it is something that we're working on now. So
Okay.
that doesn't necessarily have to have the new one on there. It'd be great to have both, but as soon as we can work out those details of this file size, we'll be able to get back to you.
Okay,
Or do we want to go ahead and say, well, once that's active,
Right. Then we'll go back to-
automatically just go back to action minutes?
That's what I'd like to do. Commissioner Ross?
All of that action was taken by the commission through a resolution when we set them for action minutes and when they set them for summary expanded minutes. So whatever we do, I think we have to revise it through a resolution. What we could do is, once staff is ready to proceed with that new element of the website, just instruct staff to come back to us with a resolution to accomplish that.
Perfect.
And that
Okay.
it's happening at the same time.
Right.
Okay.
That'll motivate you to hurry up on the website, won't it?
Little pep in that step, huh?
Okay, I have a 12F, and I can't even read my writing. What is-
Yeah,
I think
that's
Ross.
Commissioner Ross on the League of Cities
Yes.
banquet.
Miami-Dade County League of Cities installation is February 8th. At the last meeting, we reappointed Commissioner Anderson as our voting member for the league. I just want to make sure that the league did get that notice from us so they know who the appointee is. And just to discuss amongst ourselves whether we intend to go, I would like to attend. I don't know that there's budgeted money for it, so, if that's not there, I would just pay for myself to go. But if we coordinate and can get a table, then it's going to be a little bit cheaper than individual tickets.
Mayor, may I?
Sure.
We've been doing some research amongst the staff regarding this issue. I don't have the actual numbers to give to you tonight, but what we are looking at is there is a line item in our budget for the attendance of all 5 commissioners at 6 meetings throughout the year. So basically, the attendance costs for 30 meetings throughout the year. We've had 4 meetings pass us. So what we're looking at is how much money has been spent on those 4 meetings, not touching the future meeting money, and so what funds we could come up with. Our thoughts are, without seeing those numbers, is that we would be able to supplement somehow through the budget the buying of the table or the individual tickets. The individual tickets are $165 each, the table is $1,500 each. And then each individual commissioner who would like to attend could then pay the other share of their portion. That's our thought process right now. Probably by the end of this week, we'll have that answer to the commission. I want to throw out there, since it's an opportunity for all of us to discuss in the sunshine, we also, one of our officers is up for a very prestigious Miami-Dade award, the Leo Award. So there's also an opportunity for us to attend that event. That event is $150 per ticket. There is no discount for a table of 10, but the tables are of 10. We did not budget anything for this. We were kind of surprised by this. We do have to pay for even the nominee to attend. The Leo Awards does not even supplement that ticket. We have $450 that we've identified in our police budget that would allow our chief, our captain, and our nominee to attend the event. We are, again, looking for other funds, but I can pretty much tell you I don't think we have those funds. So what I am doing internally is looking at both of these events together and basically seeing how much we can come up with to supplement $3,000.
What is the date of the officer's recognition?
March 8th.
Well, I think that it's important for our appointee at least to attend the Miami-Dade event. And we don't have to decide today, but, I would write my check for it myself, not a problem.
I would like, for Commissioner Ross, because I'm not sure physically I'm going to be able to go. I've got, some personal things going on. It's a day-to-day thing, so I don't want to make a commitment.
To the League of Cities event?
Right.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you can allow us to continue cobbling together our money and seeing how we can afford this, we'll continue to communicate with the commission. But our intention is to have representation from the village. I can
Good.
assure you of that.
At which event, the March 8th or the League of Cities?
Both events,
When is the League of Cities?
February 8th.
Yeah, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I would be willing to pay my own way and I plan on attending probably both. I don't think we should sort of take money that wasn't budgeted for. But we can discuss the officer's recognition at the next meeting.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
League of Cities event is during the day or at night?
It's a Saturday evening.
Saturday evening.
Both
It's at the
are at-
Parrot Jungle.
Both are at Parrot Jungle, if I recall.
Yep.
Both events.
Any other comments?
So we're working on it. That's staff's
Okay.
report. We're working on it.
Okay, we're going to move to 13, which is the request for placement on of items on the next meeting agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to add to the next meeting?
Yes, I'd like to discuss something of creating a nuisance abatement ordinance and to ask staff to go ahead and take a look at some of the cities and what they have on that. This was brought to me as a suggestion from our police department. And also to discuss whether we should have an art park.
A what?
Have an art park. That would be, for bringing up for next month's discussion.
An art park?
Right. In other words, a park for artwork. There's a lot of cities that have it. Chattanooga's got a great,
So rather than have them dispersed throughout the community, just
Right.
one area, okay. And the nuisance abatement ordinance would include things like noise issues.
any actions, basically what it is actions that repeatedly the police have to go to a resident over a certain period of time. That's why I don't want to invent something new, to take a look at what cities that already have this, so we can review and see how it will work for us.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of people complain about the activity here at the park on the basketball courts. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but
No.
well, in any event, what I thought was that maybe we could ask the police chief, the Recreation Advisory Board, ISA, and the manager or assistant to the manager to sit down and explore what goes on here and how disruptive it is, and present some sort of plan. And I don't know if that's something that we should talk about first, or I should just ask them to do, and they can come to us with a plan if they have one, or they don't even need to come to us. I don't know.
Okay, do you want to, I guess we should address each one of these first before we go on. So is there a consensus to move forward on the nuisance abatement ordinance, which I guess we can include your...
The same
together.
thing.
This is just for something I want to
Just
put
to
on
talk
next,
about discussion.
on next month's agenda
Right, but
for discussion.
you are asking staff to do
Correct.
some work
Yes,
to prepare, okay.
yes.
I guess I would like to know more what you have in mind, whether it's noise, if it's like loud parties regularly at a house, or is it too many cars parked at a house? What is a nuisance?
Okay, that's the reason why what I want asking staff is to find out what other cities have, because anytime our police are responding to a particular resident numerous times, that's where that umbrella, the nuisance abatement ordinance, would fall into, if they repeatedly have to keep going back.
So so you're just asking them to collect sample ordinances from other municipalities?
Correct.
So that
That's
shouldn't
it.
take that much.
That's all.
But
So-
we already have a noise, do we adopt the county noise ordinance in our code?
But
Okay.
to
And
see-
I know you're talking about more than that.
Right.
I just-
Correct.
Okay. Is there a consensus to move that forward?
It's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't think it's going to take a significant amount of time.
You could take a look at it.
Okay. All right, the art park, any consensus on that?
I'm wondering if that should be something that goes to the committee to decide, or to work up rather than have staff do some work now and the committee will be in place 2 months from now and have different opinions.
Well, that's something I don't believe the staff really have to do anything. I think was something that I was bringing forward next month for us to discuss.
Okay, so there's no.
So, I
no
mean, there's
preparation.
no, and really just for discuss, and then we can, that can go back to, if we happen to have the committee in place by then they can understand our feelings a little bit.
It could take the form of direction to the committee of
That's
what
all.
we want.
That's all.
Okay?
Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
we'll add that to a discussion item. Commissioner Ross, do you have anything?
I don't. Not at this time.
Okay. I'd like to add an item for discussion regarding board appointments. I know that that's going to be coming up soon, but what I'd like to see discussed is rather than do an appointment per commissioner, have the appointments be by a majority vote of the commission. I think it's just easier to track and it's going to be less complicated and less political.
That sounds like something that then would alleviate the problem that a commissioner has nobody to appoint and they just leave it open.
Right.
This way, maybe we can get the board's appointments on the boards as soon as they open up.
Okay, and the other, the
Mayor,
second.
may I ask a
Sure.
question on that item, because I've had multiple discussions regarding that. Is the intent to just have a discussion at the next meeting, or would you like us to draft an ordinance for the next meeting?
The board appointments are coming in March, are due in March.
Correct.
So if we go forward with an ordinance, we can essentially accomplish the code amendment before March.
You would have second reading at the March meeting.
Well, I probably could be a part of this ordinance. There's an ordinance that created or formalized all of the advisory boards. Now we're going to amend that to add a new board. We could add this as an element to that
Correct.
amendment.
It saves us an advertising cost as well to do
Perfect.
it under one
Yeah.
title.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm changing my notes to say ordinance and not discussion.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Anything else?
I guess we could discuss it at the time. If we could think in advance, at one point there was a charter review committee that was formed, and that may be the kind of board where each elected would want to have his or her own appointee, because it's sort of, more of a policy issue than just general welfare for the village. Something we could talk about next
Okay.
month.
All right, the only other item I had is whether, to create some sort of, I've seen other cities sort of create a marketing campaign. And I know now that we're unveiling the new website, maybe we want to look at creating a slogan. We're starting this new art initiative. So it's just to get the community out there, which I think will only help the desirability of the community and property values. One thing, we can do things like creating, maybe the foundation can do this, but creating those Euro magnets that say, Bee Park or something, just to start to build a sense of community and a sense of place and have some community pride. So maybe start brainstorming on ideas that we could, number one, include the slogan, and also just other ideas, and maybe have the Herald do an article at some point once the art campaign kicks off. And so I think it's just something to discuss if the rest of the commission would like.
Yeah. It seems like last year or the year before, there was our police patch was remodeled, and our logo on the police vehicles was changed a little bit, and that may be some of the elements that we want to bring into that slogan. Candy, if you would remind me, it's a transparency, integrity, TIP is the acronym.
Professionalism.
Professionalism, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so is there a consensus to add that to discussion?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now we'll move to reports. The village manager, first on the village hall log cabin renovation update.
I am going to have Assistant City Manager Sosa Cruz give that update.
Good evening again. Good evening again. Just going to give a brief background. In June 2012, the village submitted for a grant for a $20,000 matching grant to the Florida Department of State Division of Historic Resources under the 2014 Small Matching Grant Program. This grant was to complete the architectural and historic study of the log cabin. We won the $20,000 grant, and we had an RFP for different companies to submit. R.J. Heisenbottle was the winning bidder. And we received a fee proposal from R.J. Heisenbottle, in which we submitted to our attorney to draft an agreement between the village and R.J. Heisenbottle. Once we receive the draft proposal, the draft agreement, excuse me, we're going to submit it to the Florida Department of State for approval. Once they approve the draft agreement, we'll come back to the commission to get approval on the actual agreement. This has to be, the actual approval of the agreement has to be completed prior to January 31st, so we can move forward. The goal is to bring back the agreement to the commission in February for approval, and we can move forward with the architectural historical assessment of the log cabin. If anyone has any questions.
So the architectural historical study is, how does that relate to the scope of repairs, or doesn't?
Well, first, this is the first step. The actual assessment is the report that's it's like a diagnostic of all the issues going on at the cabin. Once we have this report, we can move forward with the actual work, and then we actually have another grant that we're actually we submitted, and we're 13th in ranking, and that's a $50,000 matching grant. So the first step is just the assessment, the report itself.
And the $20,000 is for that report? I mean,
Yes.
Can we use any of that money for repairs?
No, the assessment itself is $40,000, 20 and 20.
Okay.
Just to kind of go over how we got to this point is, we started looking at the different needs at the cabin. Some were immediate needs, like one of the restrooms that was in total disrepair. The floor was sinking, and so money had to be immediately put in to address those safety issues. And then as things progressed, we were trying to decide, okay, well, what is going to be our next repair? Is it going to be the windows? Is it going to be the roof? Is it going to be the electric? And then we came to realize that, okay, we may repair a window and realize that that entire wall is a false wall, because there are some false walls that were added afterwards. And it would be money, good money thrown after bad. And it seemed like the better way to proceed would be to get a full assessment from an expert, someone who, has a more intimate knowledge of these disciplines than we do. And then once we have that report, which I think would include some maybe basic cost estimates of what different repairs would be. It seems like in some of the preliminary papers we got, that was an element of it. Then we would be able to, with that in hand, know what's the smartest use of whatever funds we get in later, and then including the $50,000 grant that's going to be following this one.
And also the assessment is important, because in future grants for larger sums, 100, 200, 300,000, we first need this assessment to be able to submit for those larger grants.
And would the assessment, if we decided down the road that we didn't want to use the log cabin for our administration and just wanted to have it as an open community space, would that assessment still be usable to us?
Yes, basically the assessment is gonna show the issues that need immediate repair, and it's gonna prioritize what should be done immediately.
The assessment speaks to the structure and not the function.
Okay.
I think
Right.
that's your question.
And, the previous commissions, what Commissioner Ross was saying is they came to the conclusion that trying to do things piecemeal, like Commissioner Ross brought up, about false walls and stuff. Also, what needs to be done right away? you know, we can sort of guess at it, but, you know, there's more of a picture that we may not be seeing. And having somebody who's an expert in historic preservation go ahead and give us a full report, and if I do recall, it was some estimates on repair prices and stuff. So then we can at least take a look at it and say, okay, this one is the priority, we need to start with this one first. But we have a roadmap that we're going to follow.
Okay. Thank you, Candido. Thank you.
In addition to the items listed on the agenda, I have a couple others as well. So before I get to board appointments, I just wanted to go quickly through them. I received a request, the village received a request from a previous manager candidate for reimbursement of travel expenses. Staff went back, listened to the minutes, and reviewed the recording, or listened to the recording and reviewed the minutes of previous commission meetings where the candidates were discussed. It was mentioned by the previous commission as they were going through the process that there would be no reimbursement of travel expenses. I'm not necessarily looking for any action or direction on this item unless you choose to take action. We have conveyed back to the candidate that travel would not be reimbursed, and we were asked to forward this on to the commission.
Okay, any
And-
discussion or?
Thinking that the candidate is looking for a response from the commission, then it would only be courteous to sort of close that chapter for her. So we should make a decision one way or the other and relay that response.
It was already discussed that they weren't good from the previous commission, that they were not getting reimbursement, and I was on that commission, and I concur, we never gave any indication that we would.
Okay, so we can take action as a commission reiterating that the prior commission clearly indicated that that there would be no reimbursement for
Correct.
costs.
So if we could instruct staff maybe to write a letter or an email back to the candidate, thank her for her participation in the process, and reaffirm what the prior commission had decided.
I would just like to say that, apart from the fact that the matter was discussed and it was decided that we would not reimburse anybody for their expenses, we wound up with 3 finalists, and we thought that they were all wonderful candidates. We would have been happy to have any one of them, including this one. I think she would have made a wonderful manager for us, and I appreciate that. It's only that it's not something that we would do, it's not something that we could do, and it's something we already said we wouldn't do. So as much as I appreciate her effort and her presence and her dedication to the process of applying, it's not, I think it's not available.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I hope you'll convey that.
We will. Thank you.
Okay, so you have additional.
A couple other just informational items. I've been contacted by 2 lobbyists who do lobbying work in Tallahassee, who are interested in engaging with the commission. One lobbyist in the past had engaged with the commission, and another lobbyist has a specialty in stormwater drainage and the funding of those type of projects. I've explained to both lobbyists that we do not have the funds budgeted for this upcoming fiscal year. I just wanted to share this information because if the commission as a body has different thoughts on engaging with lobbyists, I am more than happy to go back if you want to allocate funds from another source for these efforts. The opportunity certainly is there. We do not necessarily need to do an RFP because it is considered professional services under our code of ordinances, and those are exempt from RFP services. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there that I've been having these discussions, and if you all have any individual or group thoughts on this issue.
My sense is that we keep that information, and if issues come, as we move forward with tackling all these issues, if we feel a need to retain one, then we'll consider those 2 people.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because right now, for the way our funds are, and that's why nothing was budgeted, is to see throughout this fiscal year whether we need one or not, and we can take a look when we do budgeting for the following fiscal year if we need to be putting anything in for a line item for that.
It's been a difficult climate for trying to get anything from the state. And it's hard to imagine taking money that we sort of don't have and setting it aside to pay a lobbyist who may or may not be successful. But if a lobbyist, let's say, who had a specialty and was very effective, could get us some sort of a grant or a concession from the state, I personally would not refuse to consider what percentage of that to pay the lobbyist. But let them get us the grant first before we pay them.
Can't.
Well.
Yeah. Just a couple of comments. I was flipping through my copy of the budget, and I'll take your word for it that it's not there. I know it was something that I argued for when we were doing the budget. I think that, yes, we are living in lean times here and in Tallahassee, but this being an election year, you don't know what will fall out of people's pockets. And I think it's important for us to have a presence and have relationships with our friends in Tallahassee. So, you know, if we could find some money to have someone up there, or just someone to continue to create goodwill for the village in Tallahassee, I think it's a good idea. If we don't have that professional service, then I think it's up to the commissioners to forge and continue to build those relationships that would help the village in any small way, because those small ways do mean a lot. I mean, even the grants we were talking about a little bit earlier tonight, the historic grants, those came to us with the help of lobbyists as well. So I know they've fallen out of fashion, perhaps. People don't like to use the word, but those legislative consultants do add value.
We did budget for $2,000 under general government, if you're looking in your budget, that's where you will find it. It's a large decrease from what was paid years ago, and it is it's not even close to what I've been approached with. I've been approached with about $12,000, about $2,000 a month in services. So considering my professional opinion, and I included this in the backup for the annexation, I think there's some more pressing local lobbyist issues where we would look throughout the budget for any available dollars.
So those $2,000 would be available for us with the county and that process instead?
Yes, ma'am. And in addition to that, just to kind of go back to that annexation issue, as we pointed out in the report, we would also look at any excess funds in the planning and zoning budget as well that could be used for lobbyist activities. I think that's where the money needs to be at this point.
Well, I appreciate you pointing out that you received some of those, and this way, when we meet with you, we can give our thoughts and see what the future holds on that.
Correct. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? I remember when we were having the issue with the street repair on 111th Street, and the people who gave us that estimate, the people who were sort of managing the project for us, they seem to have some expertise in flood controls and flood mitigation, and perhaps that's a resource that we'd like to tap into to see if they can facilitate or help us find some funds.
That's solicitor number 2 that I referenced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just add one more item to be placed on the agenda for discussion next meeting? It's the North Miami Water Agreement, and maybe it can be done by way of update by the village attorney, but I think that has to be a priority. I know certain residents in the village that are within that area have serious issues with water pressure, and in addition to that, we don't have an agreement, and that's something that we really need to push North Miami to get done. So Eve, I don't know if you have an update or if we should wait for John.
Thank you, Manager. John is the lead on that. I do know that he would, based on the direction of council, the commission, that he did draft an agreement. He did send it to North Miami. And there was supposedly some other drafts that were submitted to the village. At least the communication that that the clerk and I had received was that there was supposed to be some drafts sent to us, but which we never did receive. And John was working through that, trying to get it finalized.
Okay, so maybe it's appropriate to add it to as an update to the village attorney for next meeting.
What North Miami, they've already done one phase of replacing pipes, but that's just the first phase. There's a number of different phases. They told us they were going to be doing over the next few years.
Right, but I think the pressing issue is that
Yes.
we don't have an agreement. for
Correct,
our
correct.
services.
But when you mentioned about water pressure,
Okay, you had additional?
Typically during the manager's report, we provide a summary of a budget, where we are in the budget. Using our new software, BSNA, we're able to come up with a new format. This was placed on the dais, or it's being placed on the dais in front of you right now. We didn't want to get it, to have it lost. Typically, we would have this to you before the meeting. As part of our transition to the software, we finalized this this afternoon. In coming meetings, we'll have it out to you before the meeting, give you an opportunity to look over it, and we will be available for questions. Essentially, it's a snapshot of the overview of our major line items. If you do have any questions, I have Mr. Williams available tonight to answer any questions that you may have. What this pie chart page shows is that we are at 16% of our budget year, and it shows you in the top section where we are with our revenues, and on the bottom section where we are with our expenditures. Our expenditures are about 13%. Our revenue shows a little higher, but that's because 76% of our ad valorem taxes have been collected thus far, and they are awaiting being spent throughout the rest of the year.
Okay, I mean, it's hard to digest this now. Maybe we could-
Absolutely, and
yeah.
if you have any questions through the coming week, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay.
And like I said, in the future, you'll have it before the meeting. But we were pretty excited to share this new colorful format with you, because I think it's easy to read and a nice summary. And then the final item under,
Excuse me, Patty.
yes, sir.
Sorry to bother you. It's small, but the second biggest source of revenue is something called local contributions. What does that mean?
That's a different title than we use. We're adjusting to the software. Erwin, do you know what BSNA is calling local contributions? We're having label issues with the software.
I'm having some issues that I'm going through right now. They have a product called Access My Gov, which takes your data from your accounting system and uploads it into a graphical and statistical format you can actually publish on the web. The problem is right now is the BSNA is originally out of Michigan, and right now it ties to the Michigan State Chart of Accounts. They gave us access to it, but what I have to do until they tie it to our AFR here in Florida is take the numbers, and I have to remanipulate them into the Michigan's format, because the one in our format is not available. So some of the line items have some names that you're not going to be familiar with. As an example, you don't even see it here, but on like code enforcement in Michigan, it's under other police activities, which we don't call it that down here. So I'm in discussion with them right now to try to get them to tie it to the AFR so we can get more meaningful reports.
Did you determine what local contributions translates to for us? That one I don't recall from our discussions this morning.
I'd have to see. I don't remember off the top of my head. There was
That might be permit revenue.
Oh, you know what it is? It's local contributions and miscellaneous revenues. That's what that is. So anything that didn't fall into any of the other categories is lumped into those categories. As an example,
Half-penny sales tax?
program fees for the parks and those type of revenues will all be lumped into other revenues. What I'm going to do next month, if they don't resolve it, is I'm going to prepare something similar, but I'll do it in Excel and then make a graphical summary of it in our line item format so that we're more comfortable understanding what each of the line items is. And I apologize again for, as the manager, for getting this late to you, but, you know, when you go from one software product to another, it's a painful experience. We just got all the banks reconciled to the end of November, day before yesterday. So we've been scrambling to get you the financials. Everything's up to date, everything's been transferred, and next month I will. And Mr. Jonas, if you want, tomorrow I can just email you with what the breakdown is for that $60,000, and be more than happy to give you what the individual line items are if you'd like to see them.
I'll ask you some other time.
No problem.
It's not a big deal.
Thank you.
And my final item is just informational in nature. We provided you with a summary of all board appointments. Considering the direction of the commission tonight, the first part of that report seems to not be as important, and that is who is assigned to whom as far as commissioners. The second portion of those attachments is the attendance record and meeting schedule for all boards. So you just have a great overview of who is attending meetings and which boards are meeting on a regular or not so regular basis. One item that administratively we will be doing, which I think will dovetail nicely into some of the discussions that you had tonight, and Maria's going to hand that out now, is we're coming up with a board member application. So whether a resident approaches us at Village Hall or is directed by a member of the commission to apply for a board, we are going to ask every applicant to fill out this standardized form, and this would be part of the backup for all board appointments. It just gives you general information about their name, whether they're a registered voter, and it gives them an opportunity to show their interest in boards as well as their relative experience for each board.
Mayor, I got a question.
Sure.
I don't feel it's relative to have on there this question, date of birth.
We'll take it off, if that's the consensus. This is a draft form.
I agree. I think it's,
Sure.
it'll probably come up. How about registered voter? Is that,
I looked at that, but then I'm starting to think, wait a minute, what we're doing is we're asking somebody to be on a board, but if you're not even registered to vote here, at least we should know that. Because, you know, how involved do you really want to be, especially if you've been here for, let's say, 15 years.
right, but I guess there are probably a number of residents that can't register.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's not the rule out that we don't want somebody, but it's...
I think that maybe there are some boards where you have to be a registered voter, as opposed to the advisory boards. There's some maybe statutory boards where you need to be a registered voter.
I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer to that?
I'm not aware of it.
I don't think so.
I'm not aware of it.
I seem to
I
recall
think-
that you have to be for
Code compliance, maybe?
It seems like that charter
charter
review
review.
committee,
I
that
think
it seems
charter
like that
review.
charter review,
I
and
recall.
I don't know if this commission wants to change that. I wasn't crazy about it then, but it is, I think, in that charter review committee that you have to be a voter.
Yes.
I mean, it's not a deciding factor, so I think it's fine to keep it on there. Okay.
And if you see anything throughout the week, please reach out to us. This is something we came up with internally, and it will be a living document as we all adjust to it. And just one final, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I appreciate you doing that, because this way, everybody's on the same page.
Correct. And just one final point of personal privilege. I want to thank the staff for really busting their tushies to get this agenda out to you. I hope you noticed we did some format changes and tried to standardize the agenda reports and some consistency in front of you. And I didn't do that. It was Maria, Condio, the police chief, all of the support staff behind the police chief who really stepped up and got this agenda out to you, and I just want to thank them for that.
No, and I want to thank you and also staff and the commission. I think this was a tremendous first meeting. I think we've accomplished a lot, and thanks the residents for coming, and
Thank you.
hopefully there's more good to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have no board committee reports, right?
Not at this time.
Okay, so any other final comments?
What about 14B?
The village attorney, do we
I
have
don't
it?
have one at this point unless you have any questions.
Okay. Other than the water agreement, which will be on the
Correct,
next
the next
agenda. Okay, any other comments from the commission? No?
If I could just take the opportunity to remind everyone, January 25th, Martin Luther King Day of Service. Come out to Northeast 6th Avenue, right around the village sign. We'll let you know what time. It'll be probably 10 a.m., but we'll solidify that and get notice out to you. We're going to do a small project sprucing up the 6th Avenue landscaping, and we're going to talk about and inspire people to be a part of the beautification project on the 6th Avenue Bridge coming into our village. That'll be it.
All right, Maria, announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. On Wednesday, January 8th, is Code Review Board at 7 p.m. On Thursday, January 9th, is the Recreation Advisory Board at 7 p.m. On Tuesday, January 14th, is Code Compliance Board at 7 p.m. Wednesday, January 15th, is Code Review Board at 7 p.m. On Monday, January 20th, all village departments are closed in observance of Martin Luther King Day. On Tuesday, January 21st, Planning and Zoning Board at 6:30 p.m. On Saturday, January 25th, is the MLK Day of Service, starting at 10 a.m. And on Monday, January 27th, the Ecology Board at 6:30 p.m. Our next regular commission meeting is Tuesday, February 4th at 7 p.m.
Mayor, I think one of our residents wants to.
Yes, Chuck wants to speak one more time.
Yeah, I do. Well, we usually have final public comment, and I noticed it wasn't on the,
I think we.
That's the format was changed.
Oh, it
so
was
the public
changed.
comment was at the beginning.
oh.
But it's all right, go ahead.
Did you mind?
No?
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Okay. First of all, excellent first meeting. A pleasure. We're a little after 9, and you got through, you efficiently got through your agenda. Thank you for accepting the sculpture for the village. I think it's a great addition. A couple points. There's one thing I forgot to make. The donations are going to go to the foundation, so that's where they will be accounted for. And I forgot to make that point earlier when we talked about it. So
I think that's in the staff.
it is, but I didn't say it publicly, and I wanted to make that clear. So yeah, it's in my memo.
I understand that it's in the memo, but the gift policy requires all donations to be made to the village.
Well, whoever, in other words, we're not taking the money privately.
Correct.
That's the point.
Correct.
So let's route it towards,
Well, yes,
through the
you are.
village.
Hmm?
Yes, you are.
No, because the money's going to go to the,
Well, I know.
and then they're going to reimburse us.
You're going to
We'll
collect it, and
reimburse
then
you.
you're going to turn it over to the village.
It's going to go, right. In other words, the accounting's going to be made at the village level, and then once they receive the money, so there's a transparency about what was collected, then we'll be reimbursed.
And we are very happy to
Is that a-
serve
is that- does that work?
that capacity, yes.
Mechanically? Okay,
Sure.
okay, that's
Are
it.
you opening up this process now for people to write checks?
Right, checks, so you're saying that the checks are not going to go to the foundation, they're going to go to the village?
Correct. Correct.
That's fine, perfect. That's
Yes.
fine. Okay, excellent. So that was the only point I wanted to make, because I didn't state it publicly, and I didn't want some people to think that we're collecting the money in our own bank accounts.
But are you going to collect the money until you reach a point where you're ready
Yes.
to donate and then turn the money over, or
No,
you
well,
can expect?
whatever money is collected is going to go to the village, and then I guess they're going to give
Keep
us an
an account.
accounting
Yeah.
of where we're at.
Okay.
But
And
the
the-
check that the village writes will be written to you.
Yes, in the end,
Right.
after the money's collected.
Because
But
you
we don't
already-
want, the
you
point is,
already
we're not
paid the
making a
full
profit
amount.
on this. The point is, there's no profit being made by
Right.
it.
Okay.
It's just a direct cost reimbursement for what we laid out. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, essentially, just for clarification, the village will serve as the agent on behalf of the donor, so that there's no, this just stays clean and even.
But
and
well put,
easy.
thank you, Heidi.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And by the way, so far, I mean, everything that you're doing is, I can give you the highest compliments for the
Thank
way
you.
you're running the village.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor,
Commissioner Anderson?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.